People are worried about Sentinels, and that's because we found out they're burning an eye-watering $700,000 a month on salaries and other expenses. But is this a cause for concern? And are they that much worse off than a lot of other esports teams?
It's a little funny that in an 80-page document, one sentence in that document has become the exciting element of Twitter this morning.
All right, guys, before we get into the video, just a quick reminder that liking the video if you have a good time today, as well as subscribing to the channel and ringing the notification bell are great ways to help us out and let us know that you're enjoying the content. Cheers. So last week, Hunter pointed out on Twitter on August 5th that a Sentinels crowdfunding campaign showed exactly the amount of time that the company would be able to operate based on the outcome of said campaign. He also linked to the document, so you can check it out yourself if you like. We'll link to it in the description as well. Also, thanks for letting me yoink it. So basically, if Sentinels were to make the minimum fundraising amount in this campaign, but then receive no further investment of any kind, they say they'd be able to operate for about 2 to 3 months. If they hit the maximum that they're seeking in this campaign, but again, receive no further investment from any source, they could go for 4 to 5 months. This document has a lot of interesting information in it, so feel free to check it out on your own time if you're a nerd like me. But basically the point of it is to inform people who are potentially going to be investing in Sentinels about some of the pitfalls and risks that could be associated with doing that. But listen, of course people absolutely honed in on the fact that this document said that Sentinels could fail in months if they couldn't get further funding. Content creators and esports personalities weighed in, some jokingly, others trying to parse this thing. And listen, a big part of the discussion was that thing I mentioned earlier. Sentinels are in the red to the tune of nearly $700,000 a month. Now that is a lot of money, no question, but how abnormal is it really? That's where the discussion went, with Gen G CEO Arnold explaining that this is very normal in esports, at least right now. But that doesn't mean it's good or that it can stay this way long term. If you've been paying attention recently, you know that things in esports aren't exactly great from a financial point of view. The economic downturn and simultaneous cryptocurrency reckoning have left a lot of teams looking for new sources of revenue. At the same time, costs continue to rise, and maybe nowhere is this more true than in Valorant, where the game is grabbing hold of a new generation of players. So teams have a massive interest in staying front and center, but to do that, they need to keep spending. This is maybe doubly true for Sentinels, but it wasn't always that way. Back before Bugha won the Fortnite World Cup, Sentinels was trying to find a path to building a legacy in esports. Now, because of their Valorant team, they undoubtedly have one. The question is how to fund that now, and the answers aren't clear. So the crowdfunding campaign that's being described in that document is actually selling shares of the company, so this isn't your average Kickstarter or something. At the same time, the value of those shares is not clear, something the document explicitly says. It's possible the company could be sold and that price might not align with what you paid for the shares. It's possible that the company eventually goes public. We don't know. So as a result of all that uncertainty, this document talks about the risks inherent to investing in Sentinels. Ultimately, the numbers are what everybody got fixated on, especially the 2 to 3 months or 4 to 5 months. So according to Sentinels CEO Rob Moore, those numbers are accurate, but what they show you is the amount of time the company could operate, barring any further investment of any kind.
The crowdfunding only raised this much money, and Sentinels were not able to raise capital from their current investors or any other outside equity source. Then this is how much capital they would have. It doesn't say that the current investors aren't going to continue to fund.
Moore posted this interview to YouTube to kind of explain what people were seeing in the document. And his point is essentially this: the 2 to 3 or 4 to 5 month numbers, they're only hypothetical numbers in the event that Sentinels could raise $0 more besides the crowdfunding amount. So let's be crystal on this. This is a hypothetical situation and it could happen, but it is not accurate to say that without this crowdfunding, Sentinels is definitely shutting down in 2 to 3 months or 4 to 5 months or whatever. And if you've seen someone saying that, they just got a little bit mixed up. These inclusions, as CEO Rob Moore points out, are also a mandatory part of SEC filings.
Yes, the key is this is a filing with the SEC, and the rules require mandatory disclosures of potential risks. This is all about making sure that investors have as much information as possible when they make a decision.
Now, you're all pretty smart, so you probably see where I'm about to go with this. This number exists for every company in esports that isn't profitable right now, right? Any team that's losing money right now has a certain amount of reserve money that they can draw on and could potentially get further investment if they can find people who are interested. What this figure isn't saying is that Sentinels is definitely shutting down. That $700,000 a month in the red being spent on salaries and merch acquisition could maybe still be criticized though, especially when, as Rich points out here, you don't even have teams in League of Legends, Counter-Strike, or Overwatch. But Moore's answer to this question seems to be simply that as a newcomer in the space, you have to be willing to spend money to reach fans.
We didn't have the reach of our competitors. So if you're a sponsor and you want to reach esports fans, and we had a fraction of their reach, well, we certainly weren't going to be one of your top starting points.
Moore has also argued that his competitors have had far more time to raise capital before Sentinels did, and I'd add that they raised it in far more favorable economic conditions. So, according to Moore, it's all about getting the brand in front of eyeballs. For Sentinels, that meant high-profile players and their salaries. It meant big buyouts. It meant signing content creators like Tarek. It meant doubling down on their own in-house content team. And as someone that watches way more team content than probably anyone watching this video, I'm gonna tell you that theirs is some of the best. I'm a little biased because their VP of content is a former coworker, but I know that they absolutely know their shit. Listen, for Sentinels right now, they have one thing that every team in esports wants. Fans who actually give a shit about the org.
Like in 2022, on Twitter, we had the most engagement of a North American esports org.
Now, I'm not saying that that justifies spending on this exact scale. No one's perfect. People make mistakes. $700,000 is a lot of bread. But Moore's argument is basically, you gotta pay to play. One final point of consideration then is whether Sentinels actually can raise money outside of the crowdfunding campaign. And while I don't have the real answer to that because I don't work for Sentinels, Moore seems to claim in the video that the people who are already invested aren't planning on just cutting and running.
You know, we've raised capital internally. Our investor group is very committed to the strategy that we have. And the intention is that we will continue to provide funding for the operation.
But the fact that this appears in the document allows for the hypothetical possibility. And in an uncertain esports world like ours right now, it's probably unsurprising that that was enough to get people chatting. Listen, it's tempting to treat Sentinels like some kind of bellwether. If they can't succeed with all of the prominence they've had in a hot new esport, who can? I wouldn't go that far because I don't know exactly how much of that $8 million they lost last year was due to changing conditions, bad calls. I don't know. Maybe they misplayed it. Maybe they didn't. So even if that initial panic was a little misplaced, I think the crowdfunding effort brought up some understandable concerns. You can bet we'll be following this one. I do have a Ben & Jerry's addiction. I do want to be fully transparent that I absolutely slammed a Ben & Jerry's like chocolate brownie last night. It was so good. It was so good. That's why I can't be CEO of an esports company, man. I just have a fridge in my office and it would just be filled with ice cream.